Hey everybody! So just got back from a Disney cruise, and I'm a father of two kids, aged 6 and 7.5. And this was our third Disney cruise. We went in 2023 for the first time on the Disney Wish. Probably the most amazing vacation I've ever been on. It was so good. We went back again in 2024 on the Disney Wish. Same trip, awesome time, but nothing had changed between 2024 and 2023. So we saw the same shows all over again and went to the same restaurant. So I decided to change it up this time, and we went on the Disney Dream this year. This is 2025. We went in February, and it was dramatically different from our first two cruises. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about that, and really issue a warning to you if you're looking to book a Disney cruise. I think it would be important for you to consider a few things. So, let me start with the uh, embarkation. That's getting on the boat. Uh, we went to Port Everglades, whereas previously we had gone to Port Canaveral. And Port Canaveral is super simple to navigate. When we pulled up Port Canaveral a couple years ago, everybody's very helpful. They're friendly. They're super fast at getting your luggage out. When we got to Port Everglades, now granted, some things were going on with our kids that made their arrival difficult, but when you got out of the car, you had no idea where to go. Unlike Port Canaveral, they kind of give you directions. The people taking your bags are like, okay, you're gonna walk over there. In Port Canaveral, we got out. Nobody greeted us. We're standing on the side. We have no idea what to do with our luggage. We have to go up and ask one of the guys taking the luggage, like, "Hey, do you take luggage? Is this where we should drop our luggage off?" And they said yes, yeah. And then they walked away. They didn't take our luggage. Actually, I had to go and ask another person before they actually took our luggage. But there's just no signage. There's no line direction. And I want to tell you something. One of the things I realized about myself and about Americans, if you're watching this, you're from another country. Most Americans have Germanic ancestry. It's like 70 something percent, I think, has Germanic background, if I'm not mistaken. 70 some percent of Americans. We like order. We like directions. We like to know where to go, when to go, how to go, and we want it to be fair. We want everyone around us to be orderly, to follow the lines, to act fairly, and not front. And that is just a theme that has to take place for Americans to be happy. We have to have orderly lines. We have to have instructions for every 10 feet we go. We like that. We like staying in our lane. We like other people staying in their lane. And we like people to follow the rules and play nicely in the sandbox. Port Everglades is a disaster because there's just so much noise and people all over the place walking around and just not good signage. So it was very confusing of where to go, when to go, how to go. And it wasn't until we showed up down at the time sign, down at the bottom, the arrival time, that we realized where to go. Somebody finally told us down there at the time sign, like now lining up for, let's say, 1:15 p.m. We finally figured out what that meant and where to go, that we were in the wrong place. So waited up there at the top. Again, line control is so important. People were fronting, walking through, back and forth. Families of eight with their baggage going back up behind you. You're in this line and they're cutting through, squeezing through, joining somebody who is already in the line. It was just a mess. So that part already had us on edge. When you get inside the Port Everglades um, terminal, like inside the actual building, it is just pandemonium. There must be 3,000 people in a room, and just lines kind of formed all over the place, people sort of sitting in random spots, and just no direction at all about where to go or what to do. You just kind of have to wander around, and finally you figure out, oh, okay, they're calling people to come up at a certain time. So the time that I had outside is not really the time that it should have been, and I've got to wait a little bit longer until they're actually bringing the people through. And then you realize this line, all these lines that are forming are all because people are waiting to get their photographs. So that too was stressful. Not to mention when they call your number, your time, and they're like, let's say your group 21, okay, and they're going to call 1 through 21. I thought they were calling them in blocks, by the way. I thought they would call like 1 through 20 and then 20 through 40. That's not the case. They only call like one number at a time and it keeps going up. So that was confusing as well when you're in there. But let's say they say, okay, group 20, it's time to board. People come from all over the place to get into that line, and they're fronting and they're very pushy. It's because of the lack of order and the lack of operations control and process control in Port Everglades. And there's ways to fix that. It needs to look a lot more like Port Canaveral, but there are ways to fix that. And I would highly recommend um, that there not be that double line formation, the one outside and inside. As I recall, Port Canaveral was not like that. We just had we went, from what I remember, we stood in a very short line outside of Port Canaveral and then went right in. And there were tons of people at kiosks lined all up and down Port Canaveral, but Port Everglades is not like that at all. It is mayhem. We got on the boat, and that's another thing. When you get on the boat, it would just be nice if when they call your name and announce your name, it would be nice if, like, when you walk on, there was someone else that kind of answered any questions that you had, that was there to sort of be a guide to you about where to go and when to go. All right, so continuing on. Yeah, like I was saying, it would just be nice if somebody was there to kind of direct you and guide you about where to go and what to do from that point forward. I'll say this about the Disney Dream in comparison to the Disney Wish. Um, the Disney Dream is not laid out really well. There are levels. It felt like I was in Mario, Super Mario Brothers. There are levels that like go, the deck will go and then it just ends, and you've got to go up, over, and then come back down to get where you need to go, or go down, over, and then come back up, depending on which floor you're in. But they're just it was very difficult to get around. Granted, the first day we got there, it was raining, and it was really bad weather. Like it was cold and rain, and it was like that the next day when we went to Nassau. It was cold and rainy, and I think that just got a lot of people in a bad mood because I've never seen people so rude as I did on that cruise. The way that they jumped in front of you in buffet lines, again, because there's a process problem on this boat. And I don't know if it's a leadership problem on the boat or if this is a process problem, a cultural problem that's made its way through. I wouldn't know that unless I were there on the boat as an employee, kind of analyzing the way people operate. But there's some kind of process problem because there's very little line control, even among buffets. And I'll just tell you one of the line issues they've got. They have a new place called Ramones, and there's like a roped off section to the side, and people were just confused about like how do you get to Ramones, where do you go, and then the disappointment they learned, and like there being a 20 person line to get into Ramones. But we went to Ramones and tried it, and I had a piece of meat that was inedible. Could not bite through it. Thought that it was just that piece. Tried another side of the taco that I got. It was inedible meat. I spit the whole thing out and threw it all away. It was disgusting. And I will tell you that I never ate anything on the Wish that was disgusting. But this food on the Disney Dream was disgusting. That restaurant, Ramon's, needs a complete overhaul. Uh, Part of the problem is the fact that they have these really young people back behind the counter with no service experience at all, and they're hand making these tacos and they're moving at snail pace. It's just brutal to watch because they're hungry people, 20 in a line, that kind of commit to getting in that line, and they're 15, 20 minutes in, still haven't been served, and watching this one person manually make tacos for people. Absurd. The process is absurd. It needs a total overhaul. I'm gonna stay on deck 11, so that's deck 11. I'm gonna stay on there. I thought the food on Cabanas was subpar. The eggs at breakfast are disgusting. They're not eggs; it's some kind of watery mixture that somehow is being sold as egg. But that is not real egg. It's not even a scrambled egg. I don't know what it is. I think it's mixed in a jar before it's put into the heating dishes. It Terrible. The bacon is low quality. There's not a lot of meat on the bacon on that in that buffet. It's mostly just very very thin strips of pork fat. Very low quality in Cabanas. So I would tell Disney, anybody looking to go on the Dream, I can't really remember what the Wishes. Uh, that's the Marceline Market on the Wish, but I can't really remember what the quality of food was. I would say mid on the Wish, as I recall. I mean, the food wasn't like mind blowing, but it wasn't as bad as the Dream. Like the Dream was. Anyway, uh, towels are normally laid out on top of those towel booths on the Wish. They were not on the Dream, so it's tough to find like where the towels are because the towel boxes look just like garbage boxes. Tough to find them. Um, Kids are constantly walking through the adult area. So the adult area is forward on the Dream. The Wish had people monitoring that entrance, and you could not get through there unless you were older than 18. There were all kinds of kids going into the adult area in the front of that boat on the Dream. All kinds of kids. And when you told them, hey, you're an adult area, you're not allowed back here, you just got kind of these feral kids that are like, screw you. I'm going to go wherever I want. And of course, you're not going to say anything else. You're at the expense of keeping peace and not offending someone's kids. I just let them go. But I literally looked at employees who just let these people walk right, these kids, like 10-year-old kids, 7-year-old kids, walk right by them and come around in the back and around the hot tub area and the bars and stuff. They're just walking all through there. Unbelievable. Um, Let me think about anything else on deck 11. The process on the Aqua Duck. This is one of the most infuriating moments on that Disney Dream. We were on there during we got back from like one of the islands. I think it was Castaway Key or Lookout Key, one of those two. When we got back, and it was very hot on the ground of that deck, and I was in bare feet, and um, I remember walking up to the employee, and they were checking people, every single person in right there in that line, not off to the side. So they stopped every person, even if the kid that you're with had already been given a band. They stopped that person to check the band. So it caused this huge line to back up when they didn't need to do that. They needed one person to issue new bands and then keep that line open and wave people through that already had bands on their wrist. But they didn't do that. One by one, they stopped, and it caused a massive line on that aqueduct. And my feet started to scald. And I got up to the employee and I said, Miss, this is totally not necessary. You could let people through. And you wouldn't have this big line. And she just kind of very snarky in a very snarky response said, "Well, you could wear shoes and solve that problem." That is the kind of response I got from the Disney Dream employees. And that's sort of the tone on this boat. Like, not as friendly as the Disney Wish, not the Disney experience you would think of. Um, and this response in particular from this young girl, I couldn't believe it. She was from the United Kingdom, and I didn't say anything else. I kept my mouth shut. Um, and I don't want to get anyone on that boat in trouble because there was another young lady from the United Kingdom who looked similar to this girl, but the other lady from the United Kingdom was super friendly, very outgoing, like very good with our kids. So I don't want to say anything of more than that about the identity of their person because I don't want to get them in trouble. And there was a third girl who looked just like the other two at the kids zone who was spectacular. I'd give her like 6 stars. So I don't want to say anything that would unjustly get anyone in trouble. But the process in the aqueduct is a mess. Um, as far as stopping every single person before they can go through, there needs to be some kind of way to um, allow for people to just walk through who already have their bands and not be stopped. Like, if you need a band, you need to step to the side. Does that make sense? So people with bands can continue up the steps. So you're continuing to move people up the steps as opposed to registering somebody for a band right in front of you, which does it impedes the flow. So I'm all about like smooth operations, man. I look at things and I think about how can you make them more efficient and make them better, and how can you get them to work better. And that aqueduct needs a lot of work. I don't remember that happening on the Aqua Mouse. I don't remember that being an issue at all on the Wish. The Wish has the Aqua Mouse. The Dream has the Aqueduct. I don't remember that at all. Um, Floor 11. And I'm just going to go over some of the big highlights. The Marvel Day at Sea, that party at night is awesome. All of the Marvel characters come out. It was really cool. The pirate uh, party, that's also cool with the fireworks. Both have fireworks, by the way, but they're really cool for kids. On the Dream, there's just nowhere to sit during those parties, though. It gets so crowded that the bottom deck and the upper deck are totally filled with people, and you can't see. So if you come in there and you're even 50, if you're 15 minutes early to this party, you're an hour late because people are showing up to those things so early and taking all of the premier seating, and that's the way it went the whole time. And I kind of caught on to that after like day 3. I was like, okay, we got to get everywhere early. So we were at the boat. The boat wasn't supposed to get off at one of the islands until like 8:30. We were there at 7:45. There were 100 people in the lobby waiting to get off the boat. That's how large the lines were and how early people were to everything. Lines for every character. And I'll just say that probably the worst part for me as a parent was the line for the Oceaneer and Oceaneers Club and the Oceaneers Lab. Again, people were registering their kids after the ship had launched and holding up the checking in and checking out process. It took like 45 minutes to get your kid into the club and another 30 to 45 minutes to pick them up. This is asinine. It ruined the trip for us. To wait that long to get your kid into that club is asinine. We had none of these problems on the Wish. The Wish was instantaneous. You walk your kid up, they could either go down that slide or go down the steps and come around. There were like 6, 7 employees right there at the entrance. There was one for 2 solid days. There was one person checking in kids in that Oceaneers Club. One. There's like 4 or 5 kiosks. So I don't know if they have like a lack of employees or what's going on, but it really put a damper on our vacation to wait in these giant lines as long as we did. And that's everywhere you go. Um, the Lookout Key, that True barbecue has a giant line. Go to the right, go off toward the adult section, go to True 2. You cut your line in half. That's not even the adult section. Just go to the right over by the Serenity Bay there, whatever that portion's called. Go over that way to True 2 barbecue because the lines are half of as long. And if you continue through into the adult section, there's almost no line at all. When you go all the way to Quiet Cove and you're just in adults, um, there's no line. So you see this enormous lack of communication to these people with these processes, and it causes huge lines. And I just saw a lot of dissatisfaction from parents having to wait in these giant lines. When we got to Lookout Key, the water slides were not working. And you can imagine the frustration of these people, myself included, when you show up to this island and something was going on with the water slides and they didn't have them on. We went down to the beach and spent a couple hours down there and finally figured out that they got it working. It was an embarrassment. In my opinion, the Disney dream and that vacation was an embarrassment for Disney. To go from the Wish and the standard that the Wish sets and the way the employees acted, and the way that the food service was on the Wish, it was night and day. I'll tell you the worst, other than the kids zone, I'll tell you the worst thing about the dream was the wait at dinner. Um, for the first 3 nights, we waited 30 to 45 minutes for our kids to get drinks, chocolate milk, and appetizers would take that long as well. That even an appetizer would take 45 minutes to come to your table. 30 minutes for drinks, 45 minutes for appetizers. Um, I kid you not. And on the first 2 nights, we had no water right away. It took that long to get your water. Third night, they caught up. Fourth and fifth nights were better. They finally got their feet underneath them. And I don't know if it's because we had a new person or not. I couldn't tell you. I had no idea. But that's horrendous. When you wait 45 minutes for an appetizer and you wait 30 minutes for chocolate milk to be brought out to kids, for any drink to be brought out to kids, that is an embarrassment in service. Um, I laughed because we got off the boat in Florida and we went into the airport and had lunch at Margaritaville in Fort Lauderdale Airport, and the service was so fast and so good at Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. I laughed out loud because I'm like, these people from Margaritaville need to go over here and tell Disney, who's supposed to be like the best service in the world, the greatest experiment group in the world. These people from Margaritaville need to go show Disney how to do it. Huge crowd at Margaritaville, but it was fast and the food was delicious. Unlike that inedible food at Ramon's, that was terrible. So, without question, I'd say the dining at the wait for dining at the Dream, the Oceaneer Club check-in was terrible, and then the third worst part were the people. I don't know why they were so grumpy, but our experience on Castaway Key when we were down on the beach, just contentious, man, just contentious. People making comments. If they had to wait in that ice cream line, they'd start, making rude comments to people in front of them, people jumping in front of you at buffets, people walking through very narrow chairs at Castaway Key to get to the beach, bumping into your chair as they go through. They got those chairs so close together on Castaway Key, right there in front of the slides that there's nowhere to go. Um, yeah, so it's just these are all process problems. Not to mention the fact that the treatment from the employees was just different. It was like they were on edge. They seemed unhappy, except for a very few who were excellent and stood out, and they should be commended for how good they did with the people and the attitude those people had. They should be commended for that, because they're just excellent. Some of those employees are really good, and I'm sure they're not getting rewarded as much as they should. But for most of the people on cast, or for most people on the Dream, just mediocre, just mediocre, just kind of par for the course. Um, Sort of what you would expect to get, service you would expect to get at, like a mediocre restaurant. So it was just really disappointing for us. Not to mention the fact we stayed in the aft. We were on floor 10 aft, and I didn't realize how bumpy and how much vibration there was in aft. If you're going to book a cruise, and I was should have known better. If you're going to book a cruise, don't book it in aft, because when they turn to the side, those propellers for the propellers for navigation, they vibrate that whole boat. And if you're aft, man, the vibration is very strong, surprisingly strong. And apparently, we were right below the adult section where all the chairs are. So at 6:45 in the morning, those employees are up there moving chairs around, and you're not sleeping past 6:45, because they're going to wake you up moving those chairs. So those are just some of the complications we had. Definitely a learning experience for us. I don't think I'll ever go back on the Dream again. We're going to try a different boat, and definitely a different. We're not going to do a Marvel Day at Sea or any kind of day at sea, because I think that just attracts too many people to a trip. Um, it's just like anything else. When it gets overcrowded, it's not fun. It puts stresses on all the systems, all the employees, and those get returned to the guests, and it gets the guests angry, and everybody's just unhappy. So that's my rant. If I have any advice for you, it'd be steer clear of the Disney Dream until they get those things figured out, until they uh, put in place processes that will allow them to handle those volumes like a Marvel Day at Sea. Um, until then, steer clear of Marvel Day at Sea on the Dream, because it was a nightmare. And my advice for Disney would be im- im- treat your people well so they treat your guests well. Improve your food quality. Improve your processes. Look to the Wish for that standard, because the Wish in 2023 would give Ritz Carlton a run for its money, in my opinion. All right, you've been warned. Stay away from the Dream.